Resident Evil Requiem is a very, very special video game. And after a couple more playthroughs, I think it's going to go down as one of my favorite, if not my favorite, of all time. This game is that incredible. I think Resident Evil 4 right now is probably my favorite between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2. Obviously, Resident Evil 4 is incredible, and that remake they did a couple years ago was about as perfect as a remake can get with making the original better gameplay wise and obviously graphically wise as well. And this one just I think perfectly blends the new era of Resident Evil games with the more focused on first person horror with the old school, if you want to call it old school, but the Resident Evil 4, more of the action side, and they just perfectly blend it together. Yeah, it's just incredible. In Resident Evil 8 Village, obviously it was first person initially, and then they later on added the third person. It never truly felt right in third person, but in this game, after I'm doing my second playthrough, and I'm finishing up Grace's section, and the third person just feels as perfect as the first person. I still think I prefer in Grace's section for first person overall. I think it just adds to more of like an immersion level for me versus third, but it is still fun playing in third person as well. And just the little changes that they make in third and first person, where technically you are running slower in first person and running faster in third person. So the way they compensate is have Grace falling and tripping on blood and some other stuff. So it really adds to like the tension level in third person. So just the little things that this game does, the attention to detail is incredible. Everything from like just the level of details in the environments themselves. Like I would love to be a developer and say, hey, this is the bar and lounge room. Make this area for us and just cram it with just tons of detail. Oh man, it's such a gorgeous looking game. I did play it on the Switch too, and it still looks beautiful on there. Obviously, it's not going to look as good as like a high end PC or like the PS5 Pro, but it still looks really really good on the Switch too, and runs really well as well. And again, going back to the attention to detail, like even when Leon is reloading his gun, he'll tuck his flashlight onto his shoulder. Like you don't see a ton of detail like this in video games. Like The Last of Us is a series that has a ton of detail in its movement and stuff like that, and its environment. So like I would put it on par with that. But this game is just kind of I'm gonna use the word perfect a lot. It's not a perfect video game, but it's pretty darn close. But I think it's perfect for Resident Evil fans. Like it's very very fan servicey. There's a lot of like call outs and throwbacks, and um, obviously we know in the trailer that Leon does go to his old police department in Raccoon City. I'm not gonna say any more spoilers other than that, but that is an incredible sequence. Um, and then I just think it like the way it blends Leon and Grace's section together. It's such a seamless transition to where sometimes you'll be playing beside Grace, not physically beside her, but like while she's doing stuff, Leon's doing stuff, and sometimes you'll play a couple minutes before each other. So it's a really cool way they kind of blend in the narrative and the pacing. I think the pacing is wonderful. Like it starts off very very high tense with being in the Renwood Hotel, and then you play as Leon in the streets, and then you go to the care center, and that's where the majority of the game you're playing in that section. You're playing as Grace, and that's really the majority of her section in the game. There's a couple segments outside of that you do play as Grace, but that is her big section. And then you're switching to Leon a couple of different times. And my first playthrough, I was like, man, like they're giving Leon to us for like 15-20 minute segments at a time, and I was really hoping they would give us more. And then towards the latter half of the game, you get the large, Leon section of the game, which is just the perfect like action game, but still has that tension and horror elements that we expect from a Resident Evil. And then the story itself, I think the story itself is great. It still can be a convoluted, story. It is a Resident Evil story, and they're always all over the place. And They always end on, you know, a cliff note. So I'm assuming we're going to get some sort of DLC hopefully down the line. My theory is, you know, the amiibo come out in July, so that's kind of weird. You know, there could be a supply restraint thing with the tariffs and stuff like that. You know, we know that the amiibo are more expensive than ever, so there could be some issues with that. But my theory, my hopium is that we'll be getting some DLC in July for Requiem. Um, so if you guys want to hear me talk more about this game, we just had a podcast last night, or the time of this recording last night, where we go over like our impressions of Resident Evil Requiem. Me and my brother did it. We've obviously both finished it, and we're on our second run now. And then we go to spoiler territory at the end of that episode. So I'll link that at the end of this video. But I think it's a reminder, not for myself, because I play a ton of single player video games. You know, I'm constantly keeping up with most of like the bigger games in the industry, but I think stuff like Resident Evil is a friendly reminder that single player, high quality single player experiences are still like peak video games. They're still the best of what I personally think video games can offer. You know, I think we get so caught up in multiplayer stuff, and you know what's hot. Is it the battle royales? Is it the extraction shooters? No, it's these single player games, these horror games. You know, all these really fantastic, great single player experiences that don't have any sort of live service crap in them. They're just presented to as is, and they're phenomenal. And to kind of look at this weekend, you know, Marathon had its server slam, and Resident Evil Requiem Steam concurrent numbers like demolished it, and that was a free game to play. So I think you know, single player games. I think hopefully developers learn from this stuff. Publishers learn that gamers, I think, just want high quality single player video games. There's multiplayer stuff is very important, and it's good to have that as like, you know, a side dish. But I think the main course is always going to be these types of experiences, and I highly recommend Resident Evil Requiem on any system. Again, Switch 2 is fantastic, so highly recommend. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment in the section below how you are liking Resident Evil Requiem, if you finish it, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video.